Welcome to the No Sugarcoating Podcast. I am Amber Romaniuk, emotional eating, digestive, and hormone expert. I am also the founder of amberapproved.ca. I support professional women achieve optimal health through mindful eating, self-care, and overcoming self-sabotage with food. This podcast provides the honest truth on what you really need to create body freedom. The No Sugarcoating Podcast provides information on healthy living, lifestyle changes, nutrition, and diet, and is intended for informational purposes only. Always seek the advice of your healthcare practitioner regarding your health and nutrition program. Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 208 of the No Sugarcoating Podcast. This week, I am talking about ways traveling triggers emotional eating, exploring emotional eating travel triggers, and easy, healthy habits to take while traveling. And this was really inspired by the trip that I took to LA a couple of weeks ago and observing how much my habits have shifted. And as well, I've had quite a few clients travel here and there for work or for vacation, and it's just something that I talk about all the time. So I definitely wanted to bring it up in an actual podcast episode. So as always, as I get started today, the show notes for today's episode can be found at amberapproved.ca/podcast/208. Make sure to subscribe to the No Sugarcoating Podcast on all podcast apps. You can also click the link in the show notes to take you right to subscribe. So make sure that you do that. And of course, it's the photo of yours truly. So I have something for you to kind of contemplate, because I know a lot of my clients struggle with weight and with hormones. And so do you have what feels like a tire tube around your midsection? Does your stomach stick out? Maybe it always feels bloated, or like you have a tire tube around your midsection that just won't go away. It may make your pants fit really tight, and by the end of the day, have you questioning what dress to wear to dinner for fear of the belly bloat happening. Did you know that hormone imbalances like high or low cortisol can contribute to this pesky weight gain? High stress levels, eating on the run, emotional eating, poor sleep, these can all be some of the contributors that can impact your cortisol and hormone levels, as well as your digestion. And it really doesn't have to be this way, because there are a lot of really powerful things you can do to address this. One other contributor can be gut flora imbalance, which can leave your abdominal feeling bloated, swollen, and crampy. And I have many clients who observe that as they balance their gut flora and their hormones and build a healthy relationship with food, that they notice their tummy bloat reduces significantly and their pants fit better. And changes like this definitely have a positive impact on your confidence and the relationship that you have with yourself. And to me, I think it's pretty priceless. So if you are wanting to understand why you're struggling with the different, weight imbalances, digestive and hormone imbalances that you are, or you are struggling with emotional eating, be sure to email me at info@amberapproved.ca with the subject line Fall Coaching Sale to learn more about my Hormone Harmony coaching program, as well as all of my coaching programs that support your digestion, emotional eating, body confidence, your energy levels, healthy weight loss, and of course, building that self-love and that self-worth. And I am offering a significant savings on my 1 year and 6-month coaching programs through fall. So this is a great time to take action on your health and well-being. I really look forward to connecting with you. So again, email me at info@amberapproved.ca with the subject line Fall Coaching Sale. And for the rest of the announcements, make sure to tune in at the end of the episode, as that is where I will be sharing all the other details that I have for upcoming announcements. So if you are finding a specific eating style isn't working for you, you're struggling with emotional eating, food addiction, digestive issues, inflammation, you suspect your hormones are off, self-care continues to be a struggle, you're at the bottom of your priority list, you don't feel worthy, you don't feel well, and you have no idea how to move forward, well, you're in the right place, because these are all of the topics that I will continue to talk about, diving into the habits and mindsets to set you, my friends, on a different path. Amber Approved offers private coaching for hormonal imbalances, weight loss and digestive issues, emotional eating, and more. Contact Amber at amberapproved.ca to book your 30-minute complimentary consultation today. So ways traveling triggers emotional eating. So there's a lot of things actually about travel that I often find will trigger my clients, used to trigger me, a lot of people that I just talked to in general. And travel can be a big secret emotional eating trigger that you don't even realize is a trigger until you are traveling and have some awareness around your emotional eating triggers, whether it's for work travel or personal fun, whatever kind of travel it is. It can feel really vulnerable when you have a diet mentality, a perfectionist mindset that you have to stick to a certain diet, when you are trying to lose weight, when you have a vulnerability to emotional eating or losing control with food. It definitely can all play a big role with the travel. So I just want to share a bit of an example of a story of my own. So when I was struggling with my food addiction and emotional eating, I remember going on a trip, and I wasn't going very far. It was just a few days away in the mountains. And this was probably about 8 years ago. And I remember I went with some friends, and it was around this time of year because we were going to do some Christmas shopping. And so we were staying in the mountains for a few days and doing that. And I remember like I had just lost some weight again, and I'm like, okay, I have to like stick to this diet, and I'm only allowing myself to eat certain foods. And I really just like set up this restrictive mindset. And then I swear it was like, I left my house. I didn't really prepare, like take any snacks or anything with me. And it's like, as soon as we drove outside of the city limits, I was like, I don't really care as much, what I do or, how I eat on this trip. And so I think the first day we were there, we went for a healthy dinner, and I was like, oh yeah, I can do this. I can totally stick to my healthy eating. And then we ended up going out later on for some drinks, and of course there was like pub food, and I was like, oh, I'm just gonna get a salad. So I got a salad, but then like my other friends got like bruschetta and bread and like desserts and this other stuff, and I got so tempted, and so I started to eat it. And then the next thing I was ordering all this other stuff off the menu. And then the next day we went shopping, and all the Christmas chocolate that I had bought for my family, I ended up binging on that night. And then the next day I was just like adamant to find a place that sold gingerbread cookies, because all I wanted to do was eat gingerbread cookies. And we ended up finding it, and I ate way too many, and I ended up coming home just feeling like so frustrated and angry, bloated, felt like my clothes were tight again, and I was beating myself up and just like stuck in this negative self-talk. So whether for you it's like less extreme, it's the same, or it's worse, where you just you travel and you throw everything out the window and you come home in guilt and regret and feeling like you need to hop on another diet, it's that there's this imbalance with this emotional relationship with food. And, maybe again, you do have this intention to start off with some good habits at home, but once you find you're out of your regular routine, you're out of your regular element, you're out of your house, your country, your city, good intentions can quickly fly out the window. And a big part of that starts with the mindset, because for a lot of people, once they walk out their front door, it's like their whole routine, mindfulness with food, self-care routine, being aware of your emotional eating triggers or tendencies is forgotten, because you're all of a sudden, you're traveling, you're driving, you're flying, you're going on a train. It's whatever it is that you're doing. It's just that you're in a different routine. And so that shifts your mindset. It's like it's a different set of habits. And so depending how you've traveled in the past, if you're the kind of person that associates travel with just like binging and eating whatever you want and overdoing it and coming home and then having to deal with it, you may continue to have that experience because you've created a pattern. Versus if you're the opposite and you're the kind of person that like restricts and diets and doesn't allow yourself to do anything on your trip, but eat very restrictively, then maybe that's your routine and you feel very tempted, but you figure out ways to avoid the temptation of the food. And for some of you may be right in the middle, where you can eat well and you also allow yourself to enjoy indulgence, because we're human. And that's, I think, a healthy relationship with food, is being able to nourish your body and also enjoy indulgence, because you may be going to places where you're trying different foods and things like that, where you don't have access to it at home. And I think that's a beautiful part of travel, is enjoying a balance with food. But again, for a lot of people, it's one or the other, black or white, all or nothing. And, there's this food really can trigger that perfectionist all or nothing mindset. And I'm going to talk more about that in my second point in the triggers, because I think it's so fitting that you're going to be like, I'm not going to eat anything. And then you eat one little thing and then you're like, screw it, I'm just going to eat whatever I want and I'll like fix it when I get home. Like that's that all or nothing mindset, and it can be triggered so fast with food. I think too, another thing that can trigger emotional eating while you travel is a lack of awareness. So not realizing that you're struggling with emotional eating, or not realizing that when you travel, you associate it with overeating, mindless eating, losing control with food, or you have one little thing and then again, you're falling way off track. Or again, maybe you're not aware that you have to restrictively diet and you deny yourself and you don't allow yourself to have anything for fear of losing control, this lack of awareness is usually a huge part of just that unhealthy relationship with food. Another thing that can trigger, travel emotional eating is you're not around your regular food routine. You may not have access to the same kind of foods, to the kitchen. Maybe you're not cooking, not being prepared again. If you're not taking snacks with you, you're not taking water on the flight. If you're, skipping meals or snacks, or you didn't prepare properly for your travels, you can find your blood sugar dropping pretty fast and getting dehydrated pretty fast. And then your energy drops and then your mood drops. Then you get hangry, which does not feel good. And you end up extremely hungry and then going, oh my gosh, whatever I can find first, I'm going to just eat, and I'm going to eat a bunch of it. And that will often then set up the rest of your trip for that scene to fail with food, to overdo it, because again, that all or nothing mindset comes in and goes, well, screw it, I've already messed up, so I'm just going to keep on that path, when it doesn't have to be that way. So another thing is, if you are eating or indulging more than normal and you get bloated and gassy and crampy and you get physical symptoms that don't make you feel good, it can trigger that what's the point mentality? What's the point in being mindful? I already don't feel well, and it's just the start of my trip. And so then there you are again, just going, well, I'll just fix it when I get home and I'll just eat whatever I want because I'm already bloated and I have to accept that that's just what the trip is going to be, rather than taking some mindful actions beforehand, being prepared and preventing things like that. Travel can also really trigger you to feel self-conscious with your body image, especially if you're going to a beach vacation, or you're going to be in a place where the weather is warmer, you're feeling more exposed, you're wearing less clothing, and that's more vulnerable for you. You feel like people are watching. Because I think what ends up happening is a lot of pressure. People put a lot of pressure on themselves to go on crash diets and lose a lot of weight before they go on their trips. And they get all pumped because they're like, oh, this is the thing that's going to motivate me to lose the weight before the trip, to have the perfect beach body. But when they fail on the diet or they don't lose the weight, then they can feel very much like a failure. You may feel like, now I don't want to go on the trip. Now I don't want to do certain things because I don't want to expose my body. And that can fuel emotional eating, because you just feel so vulnerable with your body, and that fear and that worry of the judgment. Those are uncomfortable things to feel, and we often don't want to feel them. So it's like, I'm just going to eat to suppress my emotions. Another thing that I find can really, influence the emotional eating as you travel is maybe you're staying at someone else's house, they're doing all the cooking, you're eating their food, and you don't feel comfortable offering to go to the grocery store or buy some food and make it, or you're not declaring, hey, I have these sensitivities, or you know what, there's certain things that just don't make me feel well, so I'm going to make my own food or offer to add additional things to the meal. Often there's a lot of fear, worry, and guilt associated with being empowering in that way and saying, hey, I'm going to do some of the cooking, because we fear we're going to offend the person we're staying with, when it usually is not the case. And if it is, there's an empowering conversation you can have around your health and what's important for you, and that it's nothing personal, that you want to make some of your own food. So because a lot of people are people pleasers, they'll just suffer, eat the food, regardless of what it is, feel poorly, and again, I'll fix it when I get home. And that really triggers the emotional eating, because you're eating things that may be triggers. You're eating things that may make you feel unwell. And then you may be going, well, this is messing up my diet, so I guess I'll just go all in now. And then when I get home, get back on track. So there's that all or nothing mindset that can really come up again quite easily. The No Sugarcoating podcast is proud to partner with Lowen's Natural Skincare. Conceived by a pharmacist for his infant daughter and company namesake, the Lowen's story began with a single, simple, yet extremely effective diaper balm created to treat a persistent rash. Established in 2010, Lowen's crafts safe, effective, evidence-based natural skincare products utilizing organic, locally sourced, fair trade, and fresh ingredients. Lowen's is PETA certified cruelty-free, and all products have been thoroughly evaluated by the Environmental Working Group, most of which carry the EWG verified logo, establishing Lowen's as an industry leader in transparency, environmental impact, and safety. Lowen's Natural Skincare. Pharmacist formulated, family owned, safe, effective, better. You can learn more and shop online at www.lowens.ca. That brings me to segue into the second point, which is exploring emotional eating travel triggers. So I've kind of touched on a couple, but I just really, really, really want to get into these because I do think there are so many things that can be triggered or trigger the emotional eating while you're traveling. And it can start, again, even before you leave, because the thought of the trip and losing control with food or having to restrict or eat a certain way while you're traveling could already be having you feeling overwhelmed. And overwhelm is a huge emotional eating trigger in general. So a lot of people, as I mentioned earlier, have that all or nothing mindset. So it's either like, I'm going to be all in and I'm going to diet and restrict and I'm not going to have anything on the trip other than, veggies and salads and proteins. Or it's like, oh, trips. Yeah, I associate trips with all the junk food and all the indulgence and all the binging, and I'll just make up for it when I get home. And so that mindset can easily be triggered before you even leave. And often people will pick one or the other. They're like, I'm just going to indulge in completely have no disregard or respect for my body and just treat it like a dumpster while I'm away. Or they go the other way and go really restricted because of the fear of losing control. Now, I'm all for indulgence, but I also think indulging to the point where you're literally making yourself feel sick and unwell and bloated and tired and brain foggy, that's not mindful, I don't think. I think when you build this respect with food, you don't want to eat to the point where you're making yourself feel like that. You can find what is this happy medium where you can enjoy yourself, but again, you're just not pushing your body to this point where you're having all these symptoms and then you get home and it takes you a week or two to actually feel better again. That to me is not mindful indulgence. So even it could be that you had good intentions to be mindful on your trip and then you eat one food. One food is all it could take to go, well, I messed up, so what's the point now? I'm just going to eat whatever I want. And for every client I have who struggles with emotional eating, they have an all or nothing mindset when we start working together. And it's easily triggered through traveling, vacations, holidays. And yes, we have American Thanksgiving coming up soon, the Christmas season, and all of that can make one feel very vulnerable, especially if they maybe have a few different events or travels, one right after the other. So you may think, oh, well, I'll just get back on track in a couple of months, or it's a write-off now until the new year, so I'm just not going to bother. And let me just say as an aside, it does not have to be a write-off now until the new year because that's still 2 months away. You could do a lot and you can make a lot of really healthy changes and mindful changes with your relationship with food in 2 months and actually set yourself up for success. So this is actually a great time to reach out and get support with your emotional eating and build a healthy relationship with food. I support all of my clients with full food vulnerabilities through the holiday season, how to eat mindfully, how to also enjoy mindful indulgence, but not overdo to the point where they're sick and regret gaining weight and you can't fit into your New Year's outfit. We don't want those kinds of things to be happening and then feeling like you have to go on a crash diet come, January 2nd or 1st. So this is actually a great time to start a coaching journey because we can, support you. I can support you through the holiday seasons that are coming up. As an aside, that's, something to just consider because whether you're traveling for the holidays, you're staying at someone's house, or again, you have that all or nothing mindset, it can quickly pull you off track for days, weeks, or months and has quite a deep, profound impact on your physical and emotional health. And what comes with that is that mindset of I'm going to indulge now and I'll restrict and diet when I get home. Or maybe it's the opposite and you're just restricting the whole time and then you get home and you're in regret and then you do all the binging after you get home. Another trigger for travel is visual. So you may again say, I'm not going to binge. I'm not going to eat anything that makes me feel like I'm going to lose control. But then you see it and then you feel tempted. And then you're like, oh, I'll just have one. And then you're like, oh, I'll just have one more. And then again, some people can stop there. But for a lot of people, they just completely fall off track. Especially if maybe you're staying at an all-inclusive resort or somewhere where there's just this abundance of food that you have access to all the time, or you're staying at family and friends and there's cookies and baked goods and chips and all that stuff everywhere. It just can be so easy to overdo it innocently. So that visual trigger is a huge emotional eating trigger when you're traveling. Travel stress. So a lot of people find it stressful to travel, to fly. A lot of people have fears around flying, so they'll like drink or eat to suppress that, as they're getting on the plane. Traveling and worrying about your luggage, making sure that you get your connecting flight, that you get where you want to go safely. Depending on where you're going, are there other languages that you have to understand or signs, or maybe you're driving on the other side of the road, or again, there's family stress that comes along with the travels. And so it's to understand that travel in itself, while it can be very exciting, can also contain high levels of stress. And again, stress is a very common emotional eating trigger. Another trigger is not having access to healthier food options. So whether it's who you're staying with, or you're in a place where there's no like grocery store close by that has healthier food options, no restaurants that have healthier options, and or again, maybe you're not setting yourself up to have healthier food options available. So taking snacks with you on your travels, having a water bottle, scoping out restaurants and menus. When we don't have access and we don't set ourselves up for success by looking and planning ahead, it's very easy to have nothing available. And then what ends up happening, indulging in refined foods, alcohol, other meals and snacks that fuel the feeling of losing control with food or overeating. I find alcohol is a big trigger because your judgment becomes skewed. You step more into an I don't care mentality. And as you do that, it just makes it easier for you to give into all the foods and all the different items that, are a temptation for you because you don't care as much. And then the next day, that's usually when the guilt and the frustration and the regret kick in big time, because you're thinking, oh man, why did I eat that? I feel horrible. I didn't want to do that, but I drank too much. And once I drink too much, whether that's 1 glass of wine or 5 glasses of wine or whatever it is, it just can be so easy. I know for me, alcohol definitely used to be a trigger when I was overcoming my food addiction, and I stopped drinking really for a while because I was tired of it, fueling my tendencies to binge eat. I have the odd drink here or there now, but I just don't find for me alcohol does anything, each to their own. But it's very important that we, just like with food, come to understand if we are using alcohol as a coping mechanism. Another trigger is not getting enough sleep. Travel can tire you out, especially if you're switching multiple time zones, changing your clock forward ahead multiple hours. Again, the travel in itself can just be stressful or long. And so if you're not getting enough sleep and you're tired, this can mess with your hunger hormones and your blood sugar and increase your appetite levels and almost set you up to make it easier to give into the emotional eating. So getting enough sleep and napping and just making sure that you're getting your rest on your trip is super important. Another trigger is being around other people who maybe make you feel pressured or pressure you to indulge. They may go, well, what's wrong with you? How come you're not drinking that? What's wrong with you? How come you're not eating that? And just know there's nothing wrong with you if you decide to not drink or eat something. I think there's something wrong with asking people what's wrong with you if you're not drinking alcohol or eating certain foods, because I don't think there's anything wrong. It's like, let people make the decisions they want to make. And if there's something they don't want to eat or drink, do not judge. Do not, ask what's wrong. Support that person. I often find the people who ask what's wrong with you, how come you're not eating or drinking that, may often be struggling with their own, self-sabotage with food or alcohol or both. And they want everyone else to participate in the self-sabotage together, because then it doesn't seem like it's as bad if you're doing it with a bunch of other people. Or you may find that if you overindulge with a bunch of other people, you don't see it as self-sabotage, even though it usually still is if you're waking up the next day in guilt, anger, frustration, and regret, and you feel really awful. So it could either be the peer pressure, or it could be that, oh, no, it's actually totally okay if I do it with a bunch of other people. And it's, again, you're still choosing to self-sabotage. So it doesn't matter if it's just you or there's other people. But I know I used to do that with, there were certain friends that I would get together and all we would do is go to the store, buy food, and eat it together. And so I actually had to limit the time I was spending with those friends for a while to help me overcome the food addiction, because it was just, there's too much temptation there. So I think it's important to also understand the dynamic going on around you with other people. Another trigger is fear of missing out, so I better just indulge. I'm only human. I'm just got to indulge now because I don't know what tomorrow's going to bring. I think it's important to live life in the moment. I think it's also important to consider your health and your body and be mindful with it. So enjoy some indulgence, but you have to overdo to the point where you're bloated, you have a stomach ache, you're super gassy, you're way too full, you're exhausted, and you're almost crying and upset in pain. I just don't think that, again, that's a respectful or mindful way to treat the body or food. Another trigger is feeling the need to diet and restrict on your trip because it can be so difficult and it's usually unrealistic and it's hard to stay on diets. And then it's to look at the underlying, why do you need to be on a diet on your trip? Oh, because I have to look a certain way and or I don't want to lose control with food. I have a fear of losing control with food. So therefore, if I only allow myself to eat certain foods, I will probably have success. But what ends up happening is when you don't have access to those foods or something unexpected happens, and again, there's only certain things available, that will throw you probably for a loop, and then that can trigger that all or nothing mindset. And then you're like, well, screw it, I already had one thing, so I'll just get back on the diet when I get home. I think trying to keep yourself on a restrictive diet while you're traveling is really unrealistic expectation and really sets people up for failure. A big trigger, my friends, letting yourself get too hungry. So this is not, eating while you're traveling, not taking snacks, not taking your water, not stopping to have a lunch, not having healthy food prepared or having food available, letting yourself get too hungry at any point, whether it's just a day at work or you are traveling, plays a huge role on your blood sugar, your hormones, your energy levels, and of course your hunger hormones. And it just gets to the point where you get so hungry that you have to eat the next thing you see, no matter what it is. So it's so important that we acknowledge hopefully not letting yourself get to the point where you're hangry. As I mentioned a bit earlier, I often find body image insecurities, low confidence. If you're feeling like you didn't lose all the weight that you wanted to lose and you're going to be, exposing your body more on your trip, that can definitely trigger emotional eating, because if you didn't reach your goal weight or you're not the size you wanted to be, or you're feeling nervous or insecure, about what people may think when they see you in your bathing suit, which I know can be scary. It can feel very vulnerable. And you don't want people to judge you. So you're like, maybe I just won't go out in that, or maybe I'll just stay home. I know that can be really vulnerable. So we often, will suppress with food. I know I used to do this all the time. If I was going out and socializing with new people or traveling or just anything new where I just didn't know the people and felt a bit more insecure, I would, whether it was like hop into the gas station and buy a chocolate bar and a bag of licorice, or go and have a full out binge, or cancel my plans because of the body insecurities I was experiencing, whether I was at my smallest or my biggest. It didn't matter, because there was still that inner lack of self-worth that I had to build on my own. So I think it's so important to work on the self-worth and build the self-love and learn how to have acceptance for your body now, which doesn't mean you can't lose weight. It just means that you can learn to love and accept and feel confident in your body now. And instead of punishing your body with diet and binge eating or emotional eating, you can actually go and enjoy your trip. You can have the confidence. Confidence is contagious. You don't have to be a certain weight to have confidence. You can choose to build it now. And that will help with just all aspects of your life, not just travel and the, being more exposed in your body. And I often find what's so powerful is when you get to this place, usually weight and protection comes off easier because you're just feeling more secure, happy, and at ease with yourself, which is super powerful. Another trigger that I find, and I've had clients, tell me about this, friends, even I used to struggle with this, is the airports and waiting for flights. This can trigger boredom eating, because there's all these little shops and cafes and stalls with all these snacks and munchies and different foods. And it's like, oh, I've got a 3-hour, 8-hour layover, however much. Let's go have some drinks and some food. Oh, what's here? Oh, I haven't had that before. Oh, they have my favorite. And then it can just, you have one thing and it can trigger that all or nothing mindset. And the next thing you know, you're like sitting, waiting for your flight in pain and regret and just can't wait to get out of there because you've way overdone it. And not only with food, but airport food is so expensive. So then you end up overspending on stuff that would be like half the price at home. And again, now you also have the cost of the stomach ache, the regret, the debilitating kind of negative self-talk that starts to happen is also really costly. So I know this can be a big trigger. And I specifically remember waiting to come home from San Francisco a long time ago, and they had what seemed like a little health food store in the airport. And so I got dark chocolate and had that. And then I'm like, oh, I still have 2 more hours until my flight. So I went back and bought more snacks. And then I found another place and ate there. And it was and then I'm like, I just spent $100 on snacks and one meal. And I feel absolutely awful. And so it's just so interesting how boredom, waiting for those flights or, your layover or whatever it is, can trigger that boredom with the emotional eating. So there are probably more triggers. If you have specific ones that you want me to talk more about, you can email them to me at info@amberapproved.ca. But I wanted to just highlight those because I feel like those ones are probably some of the most common. So now what I want to share are some easy, healthy habits to take with you while you're traveling. So number one, plan ahead. Take snacks with you. You may be saying, well, I'm traveling international and I can't take things on the plane. Well, I know for me, flying from Canada to the States a couple weeks ago, I was able to take a package of nuts. I got some healthy bars ahead of time. And then once I went through customs, then I bought an apple. I was able to find some hummus and some veggies, some hard-boiled eggs, some nut butter, things like that are just like simple, that are going to support blood sugar, keep you balanced. The other thing I always suggest is once you get through, like if you have enough time before your flight, can you have a nourishing meal? So whether it's breakfast and you're getting a protein-rich breakfast, or you're taking a salad on the plane with protein and fat, or just whatever for you satiates you, because I know different things can satiate different people. I even found this wicked smoothie bar in the LAX when I was flying back, and they had unsweetened almond milk, they had the different berries, the kale, they had natural protein powder, the fats. And so I was able to actually get a delicious smoothie while I was waiting. And it was so good. And it was so nice to have that, because I know one time when I had traveled previous to go to Dallas, Texas, the smoothie bar there, it was like full of high fructose corn syrup and all this other stuff. And so I'm like, no, I'll just stick with my go-to other snacks. But it was just so nice to have that because it was really refreshing in the morning. So also look for, little snack bars and restaurants that have healthier options available, and ask, like, because for me, I don't like to do much for refined sugar. So I ask, like, is the almond milk unsweetened? Can I see the ingredients for the protein powder? It's just the mindfulness, because I know for me, if I were to eat a smoothie that has all this refined sugar in it, it's just not going to keep me satiated, and I'm going to have that blood sugar crash. And ideally, I don't want that when I'm traveling or at any point. So ask the questions. They're going to be more than willing to share those pieces of information with you. Hydration is so important. Take water with you, or again, buy water after you get through, or have an empty water bottle that you can fill up once you go through security and customs. Hydration is just so important for your energy, mental clarity, blood sugar. And, it's just nice to have that water with you. Take self-care for the plane and your travels. So take a journal, take your favorite book, pick your favorite movie to watch, have a podcast to listen to, music. If you're writing in a journal, you have your pen or take a piece of paper with you. Like, it doesn't have to be a bunch of stuff, but taking a few simple items with you can help you pass through the boredom if you're waiting, that boredom trigger. And again, help you to just kind of check in and reflect upon how you're feeling as you travel. I also encourage, I always talk about having self-care check-ins scheduled in your phone. I encourage you to keep those notifying and popping up while you are away, because it's just going to help you to check in. I also encourage you to ideally not overbook your travel itinerary to the point where you're so overwhelmed and stressed out that you're not sleeping, you're low energy, and you're not taking the time to nourish your body, because it will at some point trigger emotional eating because it's overwhelming and it makes you tired. Once you get to your destination, search for the local grocery store, the health food store, whatever it is. Get snacks, get food, depending on if you're going to be making it yourself. Offer to make food or take food if you're staying with relatives, friends, or family members. I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with having your own food. Like, I know when my boyfriend and I go to the East Coast, we always hit up the grocery store because we're making a good chunk of our food because we want to feel good while we're there and visiting. So I think that that's empowering. Check out menus for the restaurants in the area you're staying or where you're planning to go to see what they have available. Does that feel good for you? Does it feel like there's enough variety? I just, again, think that that's so important. And I encourage you to not restrict, but to also not completely throw everything out the window. It's about mindfulness, sitting and eating your food slowly and chewing it. Enjoy the experience that you're having rather than rushing through it. And if you are struggling with emotional eating and you're going, I just can't seem to gain any headway with my travels and food, then I really do encourage you to reach out and get support, because I do think sometimes simple tips can help, but sometimes we do need that deeper level of support where I'm walking you through step by step how to overcome emotional eating and your triggers, whether it's travel triggers or it's triggers at home, because you want to be set up for success, and you want to be able to travel and enjoy your trip and enjoy the food, but also enjoy all the other aspects of it, and not have your travels all of a sudden be fueling the self-sabotaging behavior with food, and then feeling like when you get home, you're overwhelmed and now you have to deal with all of these other things that kind of, built up from the sabotage that happened on your trip. So I hope you've enjoyed today's episode. Again, the show notes can be found at amberapproved.ca /podcast/208. Definitely be sure to reach out and take advantage of the fall coaching sale by emailing me at info@amberapproved.ca. I look forward to connecting with you there. If you have questions, ideas for the podcast, feedback for the podcast, please email me. You can do so at info@amberapproved.ca. If you do have health history related questions, I do ask that they are no more than 150 words in length, as those usually need more support, and that's where the private coaching will probably be a better fit. Be sure to go to amberapproved.ca to take the emotional eating quiz and learn more about body freedom and my services and what I offer. And as well, stay tuned, because I'm going to be soon announcing the launch of my wonderful holiday gift guide for 2019, and some gift guide ideas, as well as the holiday winter edition of the magazine. And as soon as I find out when the wonderful interview with Whitney Port is coming out, I will announce it here, and I will also share that with you guys and link it into the show notes. I'm so excited. It was so much fun. So I'm definitely really looking forward to sharing that with you guys as well. So I hope you have a wonderful day, a great week. Enjoy the first few days of November. And remember, as I always say, there's no better time than the present to take action on your health. So take action now. Thanks so much for listening to the podcast. If you haven't yet, be sure to subscribe, review, and rate this podcast and share it with your friends. You can find me at amberapproved.ca and follow me on Instagram and YouTube at Amber Romaniuk. Join me next Sunday for another brand new episode and another step toward body freedom.